was my birthday 2 days ago. I turned 64 years of age. I can't believe it. Where has the time gone? It's absolutely flown. That means I've had 46 years of adult life. 20 of those I've been retired, and 26 I was in full-time work. I've learned a few lessons along the way. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but in this video I'm going to share some of my lessons. There are 20 lessons in particular that I've learned, and I'm going to share them now in this video. The list itself was inspired by my 26-year-old son, who came to stay for a few days over the weekend for my birthday. We had some fun and we talked a lot. At 26, he's a real full-blown adult now, and I feel I can share some of the things that I think will be important to him. So here are the 20 key lessons that I've learned over the last 40 odd years that I wish I'd known when I was 26. At number 20 is vision. You need a vision. It doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're in your 20s or you're in your 70s, you still need a vision. You need a reason for getting up in the morning, something to do, something to chase, something to drive you on. Otherwise, you're just gonna drift. It doesn't have to be some grand vision, and it doesn't have to be long, 3, 5, 10 years, whatever the number is. These days, I just have a vision for 12 months. That's all I need. Back in my 20s, I worked more on 5-year visions. But whatever the length, you definitely need a vision to get you going. So with your vision nailed on, you now need a plan. You wouldn't go on a journey without making a plan, surely. Would you jump in a boat, stick it into the ocean and just let it drift to wherever? No, you'd have a map. You'd have a place to go, and therefore you need a plan to help you get there. Who is going to come on the ride with you? Who's going to be in that boat with you? Are you going to need any help? Chances are you are, and I'll come on to that later in a further point. But whatever happens, you need a roadmap. You need to know that there are some milestones along the way that you can measure yourself by, where you're at on your journey. Is it going to take you as long as you originally thought? If you had that 3-year vision, where are you at after a year or 2 years? Are you going to do it in 3, or is it going to happen earlier than that? I had a vision for this YouTube channel that I would get 1,000 subscribers after 12 months, and I got 1,000 subscribers in 6 weeks, which means that I had to change my milestones and I had to change my vision for the channel. Number 18 is journey. It's a journey. Once you've got your vision, once you've got a plan, you set off, you're on the journey. You've got to enjoy the journey. Don't fixate on the destination, just enjoy what goes along, what happens on the journey. It's not going to be an easy journey. If it's a year, 3 years or 5 years, I can absolutely guarantee you're going to hit some cul-de-sacs, you're going to hit some roadblocks, you're going to have some uphill stretches. It's not all going to be plain sailing, and you need to prepare yourself for that. Enjoy the journey, be persistent, don't give up, but whatever you do, have some fun along the way. At number 17 is solitude. I'm a major fan of solitude. Throughout my entire life, I've always made time for myself, even if it's just an hour on your own. I like to have a good afternoon on my own, and when I was younger, I used to go on long walks even when I was in my 20s. Make time for yourself. Solitude is just one of those opportunities where you can really find out about yourself, to really think. Make sure you turn off your phone, don't have any distractions, just yourself, preferably out in nature, having a think about things. It's amazing what clarity you get when you're on your own with just the sky above you and the trees and the fields and nothing but the birds twittering in your ear. At number 16, I've got colleagues. The thing to remember about colleagues is they're not your friends. You will be friendly with them, and there'll be some of your colleagues that are your favourites, but they're not your friends. If you finish work for whatever reason, like when I retired at 44, the chances are they will vanish. They've got too much going on in their lives to bother about you once you're no longer in their lives. But enjoy their company whilst they're there, get the most out of them if they work for you, and don't be too hung up about it when you move jobs or you quit work or you retire or whatever it is you do, that they don't stay around to be in your life. It's natural. as I said earlier, they're busy, they've got new priorities, they've probably got a new boss. I mean, I recently met up with an old colleague of mine. I haven't seen him for about 12 years. I didn't hold it against him that he'd not been in touch. It was nice of him to reach out and it was good to catch up, but the reality is I might not see him again for another 12 years, if ever at all. At number 15, I've got expectations. I've come to realise over the last 40 years that if you have a high expectation of people, you're just going to get disappointed. It's much better to have no expectation whatsoever. That way you won't be disappointed. Obviously, if you're in a working situation and you have people working for you, there's an element of expectation. You have to set targets and goals for them and be able to evaluate their work. But ultimately, when it comes to family and friends in particular, lower your expectations. That way you're not going to be disappointed. There's not going to be any situation where you're going to be having a mumble and a groan and a grumble about how somebody hasn't done this and somebody hasn't done that. Forget about it. Have zero expectations and you won't be disappointed. At number 14, I've got support. I think it's almost impossible to have any form of success if you go completely solo. Even if in business you're a one-man band, you're still going to need help. You need some good advisors, you need support, you need to be able to have people you can outsource tasks to. So I think at this point in your life, particularly if you're in your 20s or your 30s, keep developing your network, keep nurturing relationships to have people in your lives who can help you and support you with what you're doing. At number 13, I've got stuff. I think if you chase stuff, you've got your ladder against the wrong wall. And I'm talking from experience here because when I was in my 20s and 30s particularly, I was a big chaser of stuff. It was all about cars, watches, clothes and things like that. It took me until about 45, 46 years of age, maybe even slightly longer to be honest. I was probably around about 50, where I realised that that was a complete waste of time. It's not about stuff. The thing that you should be chasing is experiences, things that fill your mind with joy, things that give your soul a boost, not things that are going to end up on the scrap heap. One of the things I've noticed when I go to the car boot sale with my wife on a Saturday here in York is how many boxes are full of stuff from people who have clearly died, and the house clearance people have come in, cleared the houses out, dumped it into cardboard boxes, and they're just poured over by people looking for a 25 pence bargain at the car boot sale. And there's a good chance, apart from a few precious items that you might have that have got value, there's a very good chance that that's what's going to happen to your stuff. I'm making a very conscious effort to be a minimalist, an essentialist, and just do away with as much stuff as I possibly can. At number 12, I've put in perfectionism. 80% is good enough. That is a lesson that I've learned. Again, going back 20 or 30 years, I was a serious perfectionist. If you worked for me back then, I'd be sending you away all the time to make tweaks. Keep tweaking it, bring it back, wasn't quite right, tweak, bring it back, tweak. It was not a good place to be. Perfectionism is not a positive thing. It really isn't. Don't spend that extra 20% trying to get that thing perfect. You might end up spending 5 times more on doing something in the seeking of that extra 20% than if you just let it go at 80%. At number 11, I've got worries. I've come to realise over the last 40 years that most of the things I worried about never came to pass. So worries are imaginary. Sure, if you've got a serious health condition or a health complaint or something like that, you've got a reason to be worried. If you've been to see the doctor and the doctor's told you you've got stage 4 cancer, then you've got something to be worried about. But most of the things that people fret and worry about are just in their imagination. They very rarely come to pass. I've had this conversation with my 26-year-old son because he does get worried about the small stuff. And you really shouldn't worry about the small stuff. It's not going to have too much of an impact on your life. If something big comes along, then sure, you're going to be worried. But most of the time, the stuff that you're going to worry about is not big. At number 10, nobody cares. Nobody cares about you. And I don't mean that in a bad way. They are focused on themselves and their lives, their family. That's what they're focused on. They don't care about you. They're not watching you, really. Nobody's taking any notice of what you're doing. So if you're holding yourself back because you think, oh, I'm worried about what so-and-so's thinking, or I'm worried about what so-and-so's going to say, forget it. They're not bothered. They're not thinking about you. They're just bothered about what's going on in their lives right now. Not what's going on in yours. At number 9, I've got naysayers. Ignore the naysayers. You're always going to get critics. You're always going to get people who don't agree with you. It's just part of life. Ignore them. If they've got something constructive to say, fantastic. Apart from that, ignore them. I get plenty of them that comment on this channel and I just delete their comments. I'm not interested. So at the end of the day, ignore people who don't believe in you, who don't believe what you're saying. There are plenty of people who are your fans, who are your followers, who are interested in what you've got to say. So why take any notice of the critics? Have broad shoulders, have thick skins, ignore the naysayers. At number 8, I've got growth mindset. Throughout my entire life, I've always been seeking new experiences. I've been seeking knowledge. I've been wanting to learn about new things. I'm 64 years of age, and here I am making YouTube videos. I've got very interested in ChatGPT to help me with that. I've got gadgets to help me. I've got a mini iPad here with some prompts, some notes on it. I like to stay current. I think at the end of the day, no matter how old you are, you can still keep learning and you must still have a growth mindset. Be open to new things. Don't close your mind. At number 7, I've got friends. I think it's important to have friends, but you don't need a lot of friends. You really don't. If you've got 1 or 2 close friends, fantastic. That will do. The last thing you need is a large circle of friends. It's high maintenance. It's much better to work on a small group of people and focus on the relationships that matter. I found in life that most friends are not friends at all. They're just acquaintances. And some of them are pickpockets, fake friends. They're friends with you because they're after something that you've got, or they're trying to climb over your back to get something. You need to be able to discern between those type of people and focus in on 1 or 2 strong relationships that help you achieve what you want to achieve, and for people who you would help for them to achieve what they want to achieve. That's what it's about. That's what real friendship's about. It's about being able to have somebody at your back and for you being at the back of them and helping them when they need help. At number 6 is failure. Don't fear failure. Failure is normal. Think of failure as just, it's an experiment. You tried something, it didn't work out. It failed, sure. Try again, keep trying until you get it right. There's a famous story about Edison when he invented the light bulb that I believe he had somewhere in the region of about 1,000 experiments before he finally got the light bulb. What if he would have quit at 100? And then we probably would never have had the light bulb. So my point is, don't fear failure. Don't worry about quitting on something. Keep going. If it's not right, just keep trying. Try different things. Be open-minded. Back to an earlier point about having a growth mindset. But don't worry about failing. At number 5, I've got risk. You've got to take risks. Now, by that, I mean that you have to risk something to achieve something. Now, I'm not advocating here that you bet your entire fortune, everything that you own, on just one roll of the dice. But what I do think is that people are risk averse, and you've got to take risks if you want to achieve something. I was in business for the best part of 20 years. It was a massive risk just to start the business. I had a good job. I was working with a large corporate organisation. I was a senior manager in that organisation. I was 30 years of age. But I risked that career to launch my own business, and it worked out. At the beginning, it was hard. And my business partner and I, we took some risks. We hired people when we probably really couldn't afford them, hoping that they would work out. And I've had my fair share of failures where I've risked something and it hasn't worked out. But at the end of the day, at least I risked it and I had a go, rather than the inertia that I see in some people who moan and groan that they haven't achieved something. Woe is me, it's the government's fault. And then when you actually dig in, they've never taken any risks. At number 4, I've got change. Don't be afraid to change direction. Sometimes your ladder is up against the wrong wall. You've climbed well up the ladder. Maybe you've got a lot of sunk cost. Look, at the end of the day, things happen. Things always don't go to plan. You've got to be prepared to change. You've got to be prepared to pivot. You've got to be prepared to go in a completely different direction. I believe, for example, even YouTube started off as something else before they pivoted and became YouTube. Follow their lead. If it's not working out, try something else. Pivot in a completely different direction. It doesn't matter that it's failed. It doesn't matter that it's not worked out as you'd hoped. The next thing might. At number 3, I've got health. You've got to look after your health. I was guilty of not doing so when I was in my 20s and 30s, and that's probably why I've got the consequences of it now with a gallbladder problem, which, by the way, I'm now only 5 days away from having my operation to whip the thing out. I've got to admit I'm getting nervous. But look after your health. Make sure that you put time aside in your busy schedule to feed your body and your mind. Exercise and walking out in nature, all good for you. You're no good to anybody if your physical body is breaking down and your mental health is all over the place. So you have to take time out to look after yourself. At number 2, I've got time. Time is precious. One of my favourite authors is Bronnie, Ware, who is a palliative care nurse. She wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And one of the biggest regrets of elderly dying men is that they wish they hadn't worked so hard. And they wish they hadn't worked so hard because they missed out on too many things to do with family life. They missed out on their children growing up. They missed out on the companionship of their spouse, all to be working and to be at the coalface. Now, time is ticking. It's a very precious commodity, and it's not a commodity that can be refueled and refilled. Once it's gone, it's gone. Do you really want to be grinding it out and working long hours and not seeing the people that you love? And that brings me on to my final thing. Family. Number 1 is family. The most important thing in life is your family. One day, your parents will be dead. One day, your children will have grown up. You may not have realised it, but if you look back over the last 40 years, some of the things that you just took for granted, you will have done for the very last time. If you've had children, do you remember the last time that you read a story to your small child in bed? There will have come a time where they didn't want you to do that anymore. Do you remember the last time you took your child swimming? Do you remember the last time that you went for a meal with your late parent? There's always a last time for everything. And the thing is, once you grasp that concept, it means you can make the most of the time that is left with your family, who one day won't be here. What I would give just to have my father back. I mean, it's been 20 years since he died. It's actually 21 years. And there isn't a day goes by that I don't miss him and wish I could talk to him. I wish he had been making some of these videos back in the day. YouTube didn't exist, unfortunately, but it would have been great if I could have had an archive of videos of my dad giving life advice. And that concludes my video, and that's the reason I'm doing this video. I'm hoping that one day my son, when he's a bit older, he can watch this video when I'm long gone, and he'll have 20 things that I've shared with him about how he can improve his life. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate your time. And I suggest that you watch the video that's coming up on the screen next. It tells you all about a shocking event that I experienced over 12 months ago that completely changed my life. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.